Marcus Reeves had expected many outcomes from his diplomatic mission to Vraxia Prime: imprisonment, deportation, or even execution. Marriage hadn't made the list. The council finds the human Marcus Reeves guilty of trespassing upon the sacred grounds of eternal light, announced High Justice Krelvor, his 8 crystalline eyes glittering under the purple light of the justice chamber. For this transgression against our most sacred laws, the traditional punishment would be molecular dispersion. Marcus stood in the center of the circular chamber, surrounded by 12 Vraxian justices whose exoskeletons gleamed with ceremonial paint. The translator implant in his ear buzzed slightly as it converted their clicking language. However, continued Krelvor, in recognition of the humans' claim of ignorance and our ongoing negotiations with Earth's interstellar alliance, we have determined an alternative sentence. Marcus exhaled slightly. At least they weren't going to dissolve him molecule by molecule. His relief was short-lived. Marcus Reeves will be joined in permanent matrimonial bond with Princess Lunera, heir to the imperial throne of Vraxia. The chamber erupted in clicking sounds that his translator couldn't process. Marcus stood frozen in disbelief. This union, Krelvor continued when the noise subsided, will serve multiple purposes. It will bind the offender to our laws through our most sacred institution. It will ensure proper supervision of the human. And it will strengthen diplomatic ties with Earth's territories. Marcus finally found his voice. Your Honor, with respect, I cannot accept such a sentence. I'm not authorized to enter into a political marriage. This goes far beyond my diplomatic mandate. Krelvor's mandibles clicked rapidly. The alternative remains molecular dispersion. You may choose. I believe Earth's representatives would prefer to negotiate. There will be no negotiation, interrupted a new voice, imperious and cold. The crowd parted, and Marcus saw her for the first time. Princess Lunera stood at least 7 feet tall, her exoskeleton a deep crimson with gold patterns that signified royal lineage. Where most Vraxians had 4 arms, the royal bloodline possessed 6, each ending in deadly precision-clawed appendages. Her head crest, signifying maturity and strength, rose in sharp crystal-like spines. The human violated our most sacred law, she said, approaching until she towered over him. The council shows unprecedented mercy. Accept it, or face the consequences. Marcus had heard stories about Princess Lunera. She'd led Vraxian forces against the Domina pirates, personally executing their leaders. Rumor claimed she'd once killed a ceremonial guard who failed to bow properly. The Vraxians called her the Scarlet Death. I need to consult with my government, Marcus said desperately. Your communication privileges have been suspended, Krelvor informed him. This is not a negotiation. It is a sentence. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. How had a simple diplomatic mission gone so catastrophically wrong? He'd been warned about the sacred grounds, but the map he'd been given had marked the boundary 3 kilometers from where he'd actually encountered the Vraxian guards. Now he wondered if the incorrect map had been deliberate, a ploy to create this very situation. The matrimonial ceremony will take place at tomorrow's first moonrise, Krelvor declared. Until then, the human will be held in preparation chambers and instructed in his duties. As guards surrounded him, Marcus caught a glimpse of Lunera's expression. Despite the alien features, he recognized something unmistakable in her crystalline eyes: resentment. She wanted this union even less than he did. 2 guards escorted Marcus through crystalline corridors to a lavish suite that, despite its luxury, remained very much a cell. A Vraxian cultural attaché named Tikvala awaited him. I am to prepare you for the royal bonding, she explained, her voice gentler than the justices. There is much to learn in limited time. Why me? Marcus demanded. Why not choose a higher-ranking diplomat? I'm just a cultural liaison. Tikvala's head tilted in what he'd learned was their equivalent of contemplation. Official records will state it was the judgment of the High Council. Unofficial palace whispers suggest otherwise. Meaning? The emperor is declining in health. Princess Lunera must soon take the throne. There are factions who believe she requires a consort who will not challenge her authority. So I'm a political pawn. All royals are pawns in some game or another, Tikvala replied philosophically. You should understand, Princess Lunera has rejected 17 Vraxian suitors. Some died in the ritual challenges she set. Comforting, Marcus muttered. The princess is feared even among our kind, Tikvala continued. Some say this sentence serves multiple purposes: it punishes you, strengthens our diplomatic position with humans, and solves the problem of finding Lunera a consort who cannot challenge her combat prowess. Marcus sank onto a crystalline bench. And if I refuse? Then your molecules will feed the sacred gardens. Tikvala began arranging ceremonial garments on a shimmering display. Now, we must prepare. First, you must understand the 7 sacred postures of matrimonial submission. As the night progressed, Marcus learned more about Vraxian marriage customs than any human before him. Yet his thoughts kept returning to the princess's eyes. Behind her fearsome reputation and intimidating presence, he'd glimpsed something unexpected, a prisoner of duty, perhaps even more trapped than he was. Tomorrow, he would marry the most feared warrior in the Vraxian Empire. Somehow, he needed to turn this disaster into an opportunity, not just for his survival, but for the future of human-Vraxian relations. If he survived the wedding night. The Vraxian ceremonial chamber glittered with bioluminescent crystals as Marcus stood before the imperial hierophant. His ceremonial robes weighed heavily on his shoulders, both literally and figuratively. The garments, embedded with ritual stones and metallic threads, seemed designed to restrict human movement. Extend your primary appendages, instructed the hierophant, an ancient Vraxian whose exoskeleton had faded to a pale blue with age. Marcus stretched out his arms as practiced. Princess Lunera did the same with her upper 2 arms, keeping her middle and lower pairs folded in the royal posture. Even in her ceremonial attire, layers of shimmering membranes and ancestral armor pieces, she looked ready for battle rather than matrimony. The hierophant wound a phosphorescent cord around their wrists, binding them together. With this sacred thread, we join disparate forms into unified purpose, he intoned. May your cells remember each other even when separated. May your breath synchronize in service to the Empire. Marcus recited his responses as Tikvala had drilled into him throughout the sleepless night. The words felt hollow in his mouth, but he noticed Lunera's mandibles tightening whenever he fumbled a pronunciation. She, at least, was taking this seriously, despite her obvious displeasure. When the final vows were complete, the hierophant pressed a crystal rod against their bound wrists. A sharp pain shot through Marcus's arm as the device extracted a blood sample. The binding is complete, the hierophant announced. Your genetic codes have been recorded in the imperial archives as one entity. What the stars have joined, let no being separate. The assembled Vraxian nobility erupted in clicking sounds that his translator interpreted as formal approval. Not quite applause, Marcus thought, but close enough. Now you belong to the royal house, Lunera said quietly as they processed through the hall. Try not to embarrass me more than your existence already does. I'll do my best, princess, Marcus replied with forced politeness. Though some instruction might help. Your continuing education is not my responsibility. She gestured to Tikvala, who hovered nearby. The cultural attaché will continue your training. I have more important matters to attend to than babysitting an alien consort. With that, she swept away with her royal guard, leaving Marcus alone among the curious and often hostile stares of the Vraxian court. That went well, he muttered to Tikvala. Better than expected, she replied seriously. The princess spoke directly to you. That is unusual for her with new acquaintances. Lucky me. Indeed. Tikvala guided him through the crowd. Now we proceed to the presentation ceremony, where you will be officially introduced to the court. Remember the protocols we practiced. Your position is delicate. Over the next several hours, Marcus was paraded before hundreds of Vraxian nobles, military leaders, and religious officials. He struggled to maintain the precise posture required, back straight but with a specific angle of deference, eyes lowered but not completely downcast, hands positioned to show respect without submission. By the time he was finally escorted to his new quarters in the royal wing, his body ached from the strain of maintaining alien etiquette. The chambers were spacious and luxurious by any standard, but the furniture was designed for Vraxian physiology, with sharp angles and crystalline surfaces that looked distinctly uncomfortable for human anatomy. The princess has ordered human accommodations, Tikvala explained, indicating modifications being installed by servants. They should be completed within 3 days. Where is the princess? Marcus asked, noticing that while his chambers connected to a larger suite, there was no sign of his new spouse. Her Royal Highness maintains separate quarters, as is traditional for royal couples outside of formal breeding seasons. Tikvala's mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment. You are expected to attend formal functions together, but private interactions are not required by our customs. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and confusion. So this is entirely political? All royal marriages are political, Ambassador Reeves. I'm not an ambassador. I was a cultural liaison. You were. Tikvala's head tilted. The council has elevated your status. You are now considered Earth's primary representative to the Vraxian Empire. Congratulations on your promotion. Marcus sat heavily on a crystal bench, wincing at its unyielding surface. So I've been sentenced to marriage, promoted without consent, and essentially held hostage as a diplomatic token. All because I accidentally crossed a boundary that was incorrectly marked on my maps. The ways of the council are beyond questioning, Tikvala replied diplomatically. But if it brings comfort, I believe your presence may prove beneficial to more than just yourself. Before Marcus could question her meaning, the chamber doors slid open, and a royal messenger entered. The princess commands your presence at the strategic council, the messenger announced. Marcus looked to Tikvala in confusion. This is unprecedented, she whispered. Royal consorts are not typically included in military discussions. Maybe she wants target practice, Marcus muttered, but he straightened his ceremonial robes and followed the messenger through the palace corridors. The Strategic Council chamber was dominated by a three-dimensional holographic display showing what appeared to be star systems and fleet positions. A dozen high-ranking military officials stood around it, their exoskeletons painted with rank insignia. They fell silent when Marcus entered, many clicking their mandibles in what his translator suggested was disapproval. Princess Lnera stood at the head of the display, her posture radiating authority. My consort will observe, she announced without preamble. He has diplomatic knowledge that may be relevant. Your Highness, objected an elderly general, these are matters of Vraxian security. An alien presence. Is my decision, General Kravvor, Lnera interrupted. The human is now part of the royal house. His loyalty is assured by our laws and traditions. The general subsided, though his crystalline eyes remained fixed on Marcus with unmistakable suspicion. Lnera gestured Marcus to a position slightly behind her right side. Observe and remain silent unless directly questioned, she murmured. This is not a courtesy but a necessity. Earth vessels have been detected in prohibited space. Marcus stiffened. That's impossible. The Alliance wouldn't. Save your denials. The evidence will be presented. For the next 2 hours, Marcus watched as the Vraxian High Command discussed what appeared to be Earth vessels approaching a disputed region of space. His mind raced with implications. Either Earth was violating the preliminary peace accords, or something more sinister was happening. When the council ended, Lnera dismissed everyone but kept Marcus behind. Now, husband, she said, the term sounding strange in her clicking voice, explain to me why Earth vessels would approach the Krelvac Nebula in formation when your diplomats assured us that region would remain neutral territory. They wouldn't, Marcus replied firmly. Those can't be Alliance ships. The markings are similar, but the configuration is wrong. He pointed to the holographic vessels. Alliance ships never deploy in that pattern, and those auxiliary engines aren't standard issue. Ulnera studied him, her alien features unreadable. You believe these are imposters? I know they are. Someone wants to disrupt the peace process. Someone who would benefit from renewed conflict between our peoples, Ulnera mused. Interesting that this occurs immediately after our union. Marcus met her gaze. You suspected this already. That's why you brought me here. I required confirmation from one who would recognize the deception. She paced around the hologram. The council pushes for immediate military response. My father's health fails, and I am constrained in my authority until coronation. You need more time to investigate before this escalates. Ulnera's mandibles clicked rapidly. Perhaps my human consort has uses beyond symbolic diplomacy after all. She moved closer, her towering form casting a shadow over him. Tomorrow you begin training in Vraxian court etiquette and our military protocols. Tikvala will ensure you learn quickly. Why? Because, Marcus Reeves, she said, using his name for the first time, it appears we both have enemies who would benefit from our failure. I will not give them that satisfaction. Neither should you. As Marcus was escorted back to his chambers, he realized the princess had shown him something no one else had seen, vulnerability. Behind her fearsome reputation, Ulnera was navigating a dangerous political landscape with a dying father, ambitious generals, and now, mysterious forces trying to reignite war. His sentence to marry her suddenly seemed less like punishment and more like being thrust into the heart of an interstellar conspiracy. Whatever game was being played, he was now a piece on the board, and he intended to. 2 Vraxian lunar cycles had passed since the wedding ceremony, and Marcus was beginning to navigate the treacherous waters of imperial politics with marginally less fear of drowning. His days followed a punishing routine, combat training at dawn, mostly consisting of being thoroughly defeated by junior Vraxian warriors, diplomatic briefings through midday, cultural studies in the afternoon, and formal court functions in the evening. Tonight's reception celebrated some ancient Vraxian military victory that Marcus still couldn't properly pronounce. He stood beside Ulnera on the elevated royal platform, maintaining perfect posture despite his exhaustion. General Kravor approaches with the trade minister, he murmured to Ulnera, having spotted the distinctive pattern on the general's exoskeleton across the crystalline hull. Third time this evening they've conferred. Ulnera's mandibles clicked softly, what he now recognized as mild approval. Your observational skills improve, husband. Over the weeks, their public relationship had evolved into something resembling professional courtesy. She no longer spoke of him exclusively in the third person during court functions, and he had learned to anticipate her diplomatic needs without prompting. Their private relationship remained largely non-existent. They spoke only of matters of state, and Ulnera continued to maintain separate quarters. Still, Marcus sensed a gradual shift in her demeanor, less contempt, more evaluation. The investigation into the false Earth vessels proceeds too slowly, Ulnera said quietly as they acknowledged the bows of passing dignitaries. The council grows impatient. My father worsens daily. Has there been any progress identifying their origin? Marcus asked. Fragmentary evidence suggests Kaldorian involvement, but nothing conclusive. Marcus frowned. The Kaldorian hegemony was a minor power that had previously shown little interest in human-Vraxian relations. Why would Kaldoria want to disrupt the peace process? An excellent question with no obvious answer. Ulnera tilted her head in the slight angle that indicated a change of subject was required. Chancellor Vextor approaches. Marcus composed his features as the Chancellor of the High Council glided toward them. Vextor was ancient even by Vraxian standards, his exoskeleton faded to a pale ivory with age. As the Emperor's closest advisor and head of the Legislative Council, his power was second only to the royal family. Your Highness, Vextor greeted Lunera with the formal clicking of his upper mandibles. And the human consort. How adaptable you seem in our environment. Marcus bowed at precisely the angle Tikvala had drilled into him, just low enough to show respect for the Chancellor's position, not low enough to suggest the consort of the royal heir was subordinate. Chancellor Vextor honors us with his attention, Marcus replied in carefully practiced Vraxian, the clicks and whistles straining his human vocal cords. Vextor's crystalline eyes glittered. Most impressive. The creature learns our sacred tongue. Though the accent is distinctive. Lunera shifted her posture subtly into what Marcus recognized as a defensive stance. My consort honors our traditions by mastering difficult skills. Perhaps you bring news of the Council's decision regarding the border incursions? The Council remains divided, Vextor replied. Some favor immediate military response. Others suggest waiting. His emphasis on the last word carried clear disapproval. Your father's wisdom is sorely missed in these deliberations. The Emperor receives all reports, Lunera said stiffly. Of course, Your Highness. Yet his inability to attend council meetings these past 30 rotations creates challenges. Vextor's mandibles clicked in what might have been sympathy or satisfaction. There are whispers that perhaps the succession should be accelerated. Marcus felt Lunera tense beside him. The Emperor lives. Succession discussions are premature and inappropriate. Merely court whispers, Your Highness. Nothing official. Vextor bowed again. Though perhaps your human mate brings a different perspective? On Earth, is it not common to replace leaders when they grow infirm? The question was a trap. Marcus could feel Lunera's gaze on him. If he suggested that replacing an ailing ruler was reasonable, he would undermine his wife's position. If he rejected the notion too strongly, he would appear to criticize Earth's democratic processes. On Earth, Chancellor, we have many systems of governance, each with their wisdom. What they share is respect for established procedures. Marcus maintained perfect eye contact. Rushing such transitions typically benefits only those with motives beyond the public good. Vextor's inner eyelids blinked rapidly. Fascinating perspective from one so recently acquainted with our ways. I shall leave your highnesses to your guests. As the Chancellor departed, Lunera clicked her lower mandibles in what Marcus now recognized as her version of a suppressed reaction. That was adequately handled, she conceded. He's testing boundaries, Marcus observed. Seeing how much pressure the royal house will tolerate. Vextor has served the throne for 3 generations. His loyalty should be beyond question. Should be, Marcus repeated carefully. The reception continued for another 2 hours before they could respectably withdraw. To Marcus's surprise, Lunera indicated he should accompany her not to the public royal chambers but to her private strategic room, a secure location where she conducted her most sensitive business. Once the door sealed behind them and the privacy field activated, Lunera's formal posture dissolved. She paced the chamber with agitated movements of all 6 limbs. The council splinters into factions, she said without preamble. Half support waiting for my father's recovery before addressing the false Earth ships. The others, led by Vextor, push for immediate military deployment and accelerated succession. They want you on the throne now, Marcus concluded. Why? You'd have more authority to order military action. In theory. Lunera stopped pacing. In practice, a newly crowned empress would be bound by tradition to accept the council's guidance during the 90-day ascension period. They want to control you during that window. Marcus frowned. And if you refuse their guidance? A new empress rejecting the council's military recommendation would create a constitutional crisis. At worst, grounds for removal. Realization dawned on Marcus. So either your father recovers and maintains the peace, or you take the throne and are forced into military action against Earth, or you resist and risk being deposed. He shook his head. Elegant trap. Indeed. Lunara's crystalline eyes studied him. And what of your position in this, husband? If conflict erupts between our peoples, where does your loyalty lie? It was the question that had hovered unspoken between them for weeks. Marcus considered his answer carefully. My loyalty is to peace, he said finally. I've seen too many diplomatic missions collapse into violence. Nobody wins in the scenario they're creating, not Earth, not Vraxia. Lunara clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. A diplomatic answer. A truthful one. Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice despite the privacy field. Princess, I need to tell you something I've discovered. Something concerning. Her head tilted in attention. The map I was given before my arrest, the one that incorrectly marked the sacred ground's boundary, I've been trying to trace its origin. Marcus pulled a data crystal from his ceremonial robe. Tikvala helped me access the diplomatic archives. This map wasn't an accident. It was deliberately altered. Lunara took the crystal, inserting it into the room's secure terminal. Holographic evidence materialized between them, records showing the map's certification, transmission, and the subtle but critical alteration of the boundary markers. The falsification originated from within the Vraxian diplomatic corps, she observed, mandibles clicking rapidly as she processed the implications. Yes. Someone wanted me to violate your sacred law. Someone wanted me arrested. Marcus met her gaze. And I'm beginning to think they specifically wanted me married to you. For what purpose? Lunara demanded. I don't know yet. But it connects to these false Earth ships somehow. Marcus gestured to the evidence floating between them. These are coordinated actions to manipulate both our peoples toward conflict. The question is, who benefits? Lunara was silent for a long moment, her alien features unreadable to most humans. But Marcus had spent weeks studying her expressions, and he recognized the shifting plates of her exoskeleton that indicated deep calculation. We must move carefully, she finally said. If these conspiracies are as deeply embedded as they appear, revealing our awareness prematurely would be dangerous. Agreed. We need more information. Marcus hesitated, then added, and I think I know how to get it. Lunara's head tilted in the angle that indicated curiosity. They believe I'm just a diplomatic pawn, Marcus explained. A human forced into marriage, presumably resentful and potentially disloyal to Vraxian interests. What if we let them continue thinking that? You suggest presenting yourself as receptive to manipulation? Exactly. Let them approach me, thinking I might be turned against you or used as an informant. Lunara paced again, considering. Dangerous. If they suspect a trap. It's worth the risk. Marcus squared his shoulders. I didn't choose this marriage, princess, but I'm here now, and I won't be used as a pawn in someone's war game. For the first time since their meeting, Lunara made the gesture that Tikvala had told him was rarely shown to non-Vraxians, the ceremonial acknowledgement of an equal. She extended her middle right arm, palm upward. It seems, Marcus Reeves, that my father's council may have unwittingly sentenced me to a more valuable consort than they intended. Marcus carefully placed his hand on her upturned palm, feeling the cool, smooth surface of her exoskeleton. Let's hope they don't correct their mistake by eliminating us both, he replied with a grim smile. Lunara's mandibles clicked in what he now recognized as her version of dark humor. Indeed. Now, husband, let us plan how best to appear estranged in public while working together in private. As they strategized deep into the night, Marcus realized that this strange forced marriage had evolved into something neither of them could have anticipated, a partnership of necessity, bound by common enemies and a shared desire for peace. It wasn't the relationship either of them would have chosen, but facing conspiracy and potential war, it might be exactly what both their peoples needed. Marcus sat alone in the palace gardens, deliberately appearing isolated and discontent. General Kravor approached, initiating the conversation Marcus and Lunera had anticipated. It must be difficult adjusting to Vraxian ways without the enthusiasm of mutual choice, Kravor remarked sympathetically. Marcus played his role, expressing veiled frustration. I sometimes wonder if I'm still a diplomat or merely a hostage with ceremonial duties. Kravor seized the opening. There are those within the court who believe your talents are wasted. The Council appreciates those who provide helpful insights about Earth's potential responses to evolving situations. After the general departed, Marcus reported back to Lunera in their secure room. They're trying to recruit me as an informant. We need more concrete evidence, Lunera replied. Their planning was interrupted by an emergency alert. Your Highness, there has been an attack on the Emperor's medical chambers. At the Emperor's suite, they found chaos. The weakened Emperor lay surrounded by medical equipment, 2 dead attackers on the floor. Lunera received the security report, for attackers penetrated security using diplomatic access codes. Chancellor Vextor arrived, immediately pressing for action. We must install you as Empress within the day. My father lives, Lunera replied coldly. There will be no succession discussion until these attackers are identified. Tension escalated as Marcus noticed security officers repositioning. Princess, he whispered, the guard by the east door has disabled his communication crystal. Suddenly, palace alarms blared, security breach in the weapons vault. Lunera moved with lightning speed, revealing concealed weapons. Guards loyal to the throne, secure the Emperor. Combat erupted throughout the chamber. Despite his limited training, Marcus managed to disable 2 attackers using a fallen guard's stun weapon. Lunera confronted Vextor directly. Surrender, Chancellor. Your conspiracy is exposed. You understand nothing, Vextor hissed. The greater threat comes. We require military leadership, not diplomatic weakness. Tikvala arrived with crucial intelligence. They plan to launch a strike against Earth vessels in the neutral zone, vessels which we have confirmed are actually Vraxian ships disguised with human markings. Lunera's fury was palpable. You would start a war with fabricated evidence? Better conflict than the contamination of Vraxian purity through collaboration, Vextor spat. As the conspirators were taken away, the medical team discovered the Emperor had been systematically poisoned through falsified treatment protocols. When the chaos subsided, Lunera turned to Marcus. You fought well, husband. For a human with inadequate training. I had a good teacher, Marcus replied. Lunera made a formal gesture toward the Imperial guards, who immediately knelt in salute. What just happened? Marcus whispered. I have acknowledged you as Vrektau, battle-proven consort, Lunera explained. The guards will now treat you as a full member of the Imperial House, not merely a diplomatic accessory. It transforms you from a sentence I endured to a choice I would defend. As they left together, the royal guards formed an honor corridor, saluting them both equally. For the first time, Marcus felt something beyond strategic calculation in his relationship with the princess, something that might evolve into actual respect. Or perhaps, something more. 60 days after the failed coup, the Grand Ceremonial Hall of the Vraxian Imperial Palace hosted representatives from 27 worlds, including the largest Earth delegation ever permitted on Vraxian soil. Marcus stood at the base of the crystal throne in ceremonial armor that blended Vraxian and Earth designs. The investigation into Vextor's conspiracy had revealed shocking connections. the Chancellor had secretly collaborated with radical factions of Earth's military who, like their Vraxian counterparts, feared peaceful coexistence would diminish their power. Emperor Krelzin entered, walking slowly but under his own power. Though his exoskeleton showed permanent damage from the poisoning, his mind remained sharp. Princess Lnera followed in battle regalia that, for the first time in Vraxian history, incorporated diplomatic symbols alongside warrior emblems. The recent conspiracy sought to preserve Vraxian isolation through deception and violence, the Emperor declared. Those responsible believed our strength lay in separation and conflict. They were wrong. The Emperor gestured toward Marcus. Today, we recognize not merely a consort but a true imperial advisor. Marcus Reeves approached the throne. This unexpected development surprised Marcus. At Lnera's subtle nod, he approached and knelt before the Emperor, who placed a ceremonial sensor crystal on his forehead, a device that detected deception. Do you, Marcus Reeves, pledge loyalty to the Vraxian Empire while maintaining honorable representation of Earth's legitimate interests? The Emperor asked, offering a modified oath that acknowledged Marcus's unique dual role. I do so pledge, Marcus responded in fluent Vraxian. After completing the oath, the Emperor proclaimed, Rise, Marcus Reeves, Imperial Consort and Ambassador Plenipotentiary. The sensor crystal glowed bright blue, indicating complete truthfulness. Lnera then presented the protocols of galactic integration, a comprehensive framework for peaceful cooperation between their worlds. These protocols emerge from the recognition that isolation breeds fear, and fear breeds conflict. The Earth ambassador stepped forward. Earth accepts these protocols with appreciation. Where we once saw alien threats, we now recognize potential allies. When the ceremony concluded, the Emperor pressed the imperial seal to the document, encoding the agreement permanently. What is sealed in crystal cannot be unseen or denied, he declared. The path is set. Later that evening, Marcus found Lnera on their private balcony, gazing at Vraxia's 3 moons. There is another Vraxian custom you should be aware of, she said. When royal consorts are joined through arrangement rather than choice, tradition permits them to dissolve the bond after significant imperial service. You have more than fulfilled that requirement. Marcus felt his chest tighten. Are you offering me release from our marriage? I am acknowledging your right to request it, Lnera clarified. Earth might prefer their ambassador unburdened by Vraxian familial obligations. And you did not choose this life. Marcus considered the diplomatic implications, but focused on the truth he'd been avoiding for weeks. What if I don't want release? He asked quietly. Lnera's head tilted in surprise. Explain. This began as my sentence. Then it became my duty. Marcus stepped closer. Now I find it has become my choice. What does Vraxian tradition say about consorts who choose to remain bound after obligation ends? It says such bonds transcend arrangement and become true partnership. And what does Lnera, not the princess, just Lnera, think about that possibility? She extended her upper right limb, palm upward, a gesture now combined with the movement signifying personal rather than political choice. I think that having adapted to one impossible circumstance, we might successfully navigate others. Including the unprecedented territory of genuine partnership across our differences. Marcus placed his hand on her palm. Then I choose to stay. Not as a sentence, not as a symbol, but as your partner in whatever comes next. Together, they watched the moons rise higher, no longer strangers forced together by circumstance, but partners by choice in the complex work of building bridges between worlds. Marcus had been found guilty by aliens and forced to marry their feared princess. Now, he couldn't imagine any other path, or any other partner with whom to walk it.